Good evening, good evening, good evening. Let me welcome you to this evening's edition of Mango Tree Dialogues. Those of you who have listened to the presentations that have been done in the past will know what we are about. You know that we are a forum in which we try to distill or discuss the issues of the day, both in the diaspora and Jamaica specifically, and also in the United States, and from time to time, looking at the international arena, because we are just one closed, interdependent and interconnected world, and we are all on this planet, almost 8 billion people of us, and this is where we are, and we have to live and hopefully try to live as best as possible with each other so that everybody can exercise their talents and their God-given potentialities and become the kind of people that God would want them to be. Yes, I haven't done much on the diaspora situation, and some of you might be wondering why I haven't done that. And it is something that I'm going to be addressing very soon, so we can have some voices from the diaspora speaking to us the matters of concern, especially in the United States, the diaspora in the United States, because there are so many things that are happening there now that are directly impacting the lives of Jamaicans. And that bear need some discussion and so on. So I try to correct that soon. We've been doing quite a bit on the Jamaican situation, of course. We're in the election year and the parliamentary election year, and people are gearing up for that. There are all kinds of things that are being said and done, at this time, because the politicians, of course, are trying to ingratiate themselves to the people. And understandably, that's what politicians do. You're not going to gain power by sitting in the closet, right? You got to get out there and influence people and influence opinions and get them behind you. But this evening, I'm going to be talking about the continuing Trump carnage. And I can see that some of you have just gotten up out of your seats and walked away. Oh, Trump again. Yes, Trump again. And Trump is going to be for the next 4 years if he lasts that long. But then that's another matter. In terms of, his health and probably, who knows, the far-fetched thought of impeachment. I leave that. So we're going to be getting into that. But before and under the heading, really, the Trump carnage continues. And then later on in the program, I'm hoping to have join me one of the members of the Mango Tree Squad, Mr. Carl Brown, Brian, his twin, is not able to join us on this evening, but we are going to have Carl coming to help me distill some of these issues later on. But for the time being, I'm flying solo. All right, but there's something on my mind that I need to just quickly bring it to your attention. And that is the influenza strain that is going around. It is a worldwide, as you know, the influenza is a worldwide, just like COVID was, and is a worldwide phenomenon. It affects everybody in every country of the world. Not with the severity that it was when it just came on the scene. But still yet, the influenza virus this year, viruses mutate, they change each time. And when you think you have figured them out on one level, then they shift, they refinance, so to speak, and they move in another direction. And so scientists have to be constantly looking at what is taking place, studying them. These are microscopic organisms. and they have to be studied very carefully. They do so much harm to the human body, as we know so well from COVID. And as we're seeing now with the influenza, there are more people that are I'm talking now about the United States, that there are more people that are being hospitalized this year because of the influenza. It is a more virulent strain that has been seen in the past. And people are dying. I think we've had over close to 20,000 deaths in the United States so far. And it's all over the world. And so what I want to do is to caution us to be very careful, to be aware that this virus is out there, and to understand that the authorities are keeping an eye on it, though that ability to really, surveil the virus has been crimped in the United States just recently because of the new head of the Health and Human Services, Mr. Kennedy, RFK. It would appear, and I'd say no stronger than that, that resources have been taken away from the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, based in Atlanta, which is a premier organization that looks at public health, looks at these diseases, looks at these viruses, try to anticipate how they behave, and to come up with scientific methodologies to combat these viruses whenever they really start to wreak havoc on the human body, like getting vaccines, something that he's not committed to. As was well known before those sycophants in the Senate endorsed him to be HHS. Then again, that's another matter. So what I'm saying is that at a time when you really need to be keeping an eye on this virus, and interestingly, or perhaps sadly, with the bird flu virus, the chicken, virus that has emerged and is causing concern, with livestock. Of course, a lot of livestock has been destroyed because of this virus, and there is the fear from the CDC that it might be mutating. And can you imagine? And the real fear is that if it mutates and comes as a partner with the influenza virus, we could have a serious problem on our hands. And that is the time when we should be putting out all the resources that we can to identify and find out exactly how these viruses are operating. That's the time when we're firing people. That is the time when we're cutting back on resources. Are we crazy? That's all part of the carnage that is taking place in the United States right now. But so let me get to that. Because last Tuesday, the President Trump presented the traditional State of the Union address. Some people characterize it as the State of the Disunion, which I couldn't say that I don't find agreement with. But the traditional yearly State of the Union address, where the president goes out there and addresses the joint, the full Congress, both the Senate and the House of Representatives, in a joint presentation, to really say what the speech is really about, the State of the Union. And of course, he was in his elements. The chief characteristic of that elemental sense of Trump was lies and innuendos that he told to the audience, and the falsehoods and the kind of bitter rhetoric, let me put it that way, that oozed out of him. I must tell you, I always want to listen to these speeches and these presentations for myself to hear it live. I don't always like to hear this secondhand presentation by the analysts or even the news people because they get it wrong and sometimes they say things that either don't go so or is a kind of overlay of their own views and so on these things. So I always like to listen to these speeches, especially a very important speech like the State of the Union. I would like to sit there and hear what the president is saying to me, as I've done so many times, listening to the president. But I must tell you, I could not sit and listen to Trump. And let me give him he's the president, President Trump. I took the decision that I was not going to dignify what I perceived to be the falsehoods and the rhetoric that would be flowing from him. I don't think I could sit there for and as it turned out, the longest speech ever. It was an hour and 40 minutes just dawdling and carrying on. Because he had a captive audience, largely of the Republicans. The Democrats who were there, they must have found it very irritating to continue sitting through it. But there was one person who, the representative from the 9th Congressional District in Texas, Mr. Al Green, who got up intermittently and shouted at him, pointed his cane at him, in shouting him down. As he says something, he shouts it down. And so it got to the point where the speaker had to really remove him. I want to break off and say something to the Democrats. You will never out Trump. He's in a class all by his own. So when you go to a forum like that, inside a forum like that, and you are trying to shout over him and all this sort of thing, it is ineffective. It doesn't make sense. And then you get yourself thrown out. You come across as a kind of petulant child, in my view, doing that sort of thing. It would have been better. There are many choices that you had, because you should have an idea of what the man was going to come with. You didn't know exactly what he was going to say, but you should have had an idea. That you might have decided, like many others, not to attend, the presentation, or to do like, I know, Maxwell Frost and Crockett from Texas, and they walk out. Others walked out. You don't have to sit there and drinking all that garbage that was spewing from Trump's mouth. Reminded me of a meeting that I attended once, and this gentleman came to give a speech, and from the get-go, I don't know what got into his chest. From the get-go, he started to excoriate, to get at the audience. He might have heard something and came there to vent, and he started out with that. And as he did, I walked out. I said, I came here to hear a speech. I didn't come here for you to insult me. So I didn't stay. And I waited him out until he was finished and I went back into the meeting. Simple. You'd have to sit there and take it. But to think that you can stand up and shout him down, it's a bad strategy. And then there were these signs that were held up and all that. So all of that means nothing. Trump sees a man, it doesn't mean anything to him at all. And it seemed a little schoolboyish, schoolgirlish, somewhat sophomoric. Let me put it that way. You know, holding up these signs in a context like that, as if you don't know who Trump is. It doesn't make sense. That kind of thing doesn't. You say it is protest, but Democrats, that's what you're gonna be coming with. It's not going to work. That's not how it works. You've got to begin to start plot strategies of how you're going to countermand the carnage that is taking place. And yes, you're showing your protest, but like I said, there are other ways in which you could do it. And but trying to disrupt and all that sort of thing, it really doesn't work. You know, you just play into the hands of the Trump supporters and play into the hands of those who, you know, think that Democrats really don't have what it takes right now to confront Trump in any meaningful way. And you want to counter that narrative. You don't want to give any kind of support or succor to it. You want to counter it. And I think that that kind of behavior on the part of the Democrats didn't really, I don't think it won them a great deal of friends or influenced a lot of people in the right direction to be on their side. And if that's what you have, then God help us. You know, friends, we are at a very critical turning point in that country, the US. And what I picked up from the speech after it was reported, as I said, I prefer to have heard it myself. But there are reliable sources. The New York Times, for example, is a reliable source. You can always go there. The Washington Post, before Bezos took it over, is a reliable organ. The Wall Street Journal, in a sense, is a good source. That tends to, although it is pretty conservative in its characteristics, it tends to present, you know, a fair package. So you could pick up what he said, and I did lean into some of that. All that it said to me is that it really painted a picture of the dire straits that the country is in. The president, for example, talked about tariffs, that he had been playing around like toy. He thinks it's a toy, you know. Just throw a tariff on Mexico, throw a tariff on Colombia, if he's gonna stop the planes coming in with the deportees. Throw a tariff on China. Everything he throws a tariff, which is really him throwing a tantrum or a tantrum. He doesn't have a clue as to what the implications of tariffs are to the economy. So Monday he signed off that he's going to be hitting Canada and Mexico with 25% tariffs. He never ran off. By the following day, he's pulling back, saying that and that, as he said, that the stock market took a nosedive. And if there's anything that Trump watches, it is the stock market, because he sees it as the real, you know, economy. to tell you how much he knows about economics. He sees the stock market. So if it is up, he's happy. If it's going down, he sees it as a ding against him. And so when he saw that the market started to go downhill, stepped on a banana peel and was going downhill, he quickly reversed himself and said, oh, we're going to hold out for 30 days. And all that kind of thing. He keeps threatening. He thinks it's, as I said, it's a toy. So he keeps threatening what he's going to do and what he's going to, impose upon these countries, not recognizing the great harm that he's doing to the American economy. As a matter of fact, economists that I trust are saying that if you're not careful, if they're not careful, they could be driving the country into a depression, not even recession, depression. Because, and the market is sensing this, and that is why the market tanked today again, went downstream again today. Because people are afraid, investors are afraid. If there's anything to destroy a market, it is uncertainty and the volatility that comes from that kind of uncertainty. And Trump is promoting that, just throwing tariffs at the wall just to see what will stick. It's like a little toy, and he's in his sandbox just playing with tariffs. Come on, gonna do a lot of harm. If these tariffs really do go through, expect inflation, as the economists are telling us, to continue to rise, and then that's when it's gonna really hurt people. And so the carnage continues in so many ways. And that's something that we're going to have to look at. But I just thought I'd mention the tariffs because it has immediate implications. But then another aspect of it too, the carnage, another aspect of it, and very quickly, I see my friend Carl is sitting in the green room. I'll soon have to admit him. But let me just say this before I do that. If you're hearing me, Carl, that what Trump is doing in this carnage has real time consequences for families. Think about the people who have been dismissed summarily from their jobs because they do not meet the criteria, the performance criteria of the co-president, Musk. Consider what that is doing. The pain. But does he care? No, because a way has to be found to get these cuts so that he can have some justification. He can balance, when he's ready to give himself and his rich, wealthy friends the tax heist that he's promised, the biggest, most beautiful, as he'd call it, tax heist. He has to find a way. And that's why he's gutting all of these agencies and putting people's lives in peril. People need to understand that. And it's going to get worse. And let me say finally, to those who are giving him aid and succor, those in his administration who are running these agencies, people like Marco Rubio, I just want to say a word to you guys. Trump, at his age, almost 79, gonna be 79 June, is literally sitting in the exit lounge. He's not gonna be around forever. But you guys, especially Rubio, you're in your 50s. You still have a future ahead of you. But if you're not careful, you will so align yourselves with the most maligned aspects of this administration that it will do a great deal of damage to you personally. You, not you, Rubio, but all of you who are giving aid and succor, still young people in a way. and you're giving aid and succor to all of this, not standing up. Is it that you really believe in the mission? Or are you just there to make sure that you do what the president tells you to do because you really want to not displease him? Because the moment you displease him, you're caught. Ask Tillerson. Ask the others in the last administration that who may just asked summarily. So you want to do his bidding. But another thing I need to tell you, and take it on advisement, be careful how you're skirting with the law. Be careful how you're trespassing on the law. The day of reckoning coming. And that day of reckoning could be as early as the next year and a quarter. In the next midterms. Yes, he will pardon you. But you run afoul of the law and he pardons you, and you see what career you have in the future. So you have to be very, very careful. Very, very careful that you do not run afoul of the law. I'm not going to say anything further than that. I'll just leave that. I'll come back to it at some point. But take it as a friendly advice at this point. Now, let me see if I can bring in our guest, Mr. Brown, to help me talk about some of these things. And see where we get. But we are in perilous times. Yes, sir. There is the man.
How are you?
Yeah, welcome, my brother. Welcome to Mango Tree Dialogues. It's been a little while. I'm very happy that you've been able to join me this evening as we take a look at what I have described as the continued carnage of Trump 2.0.
For sure.
I don't know if you have been hearing, the previous discussions that I have been indulging, and what I said earlier about what is taking place. So why not just ask you to just jump right in there and tell us, what are your impressions so far with what has been taking place?
Well, in some aspects, Ralston, it's not a surprise. It's a disappointing reality that we all now are faced with. It's sad that we are moving in the directions that we are, and rather quickly. Um, Trump, as you pointed out, 2.0 this time around, is making sure that all the mistakes he made the last time, he has superseded all of those errors and has, as far as I can see, is doing a much better job in moving quickly to destroy many things that were there before. So we're in perilous times. We really are. It's a crisis in some aspects. But on the other hand, too, though, I got to say that any crisis, there are opportunities. And in this instance, Ralston, I think America is going to be confronted with certain truths that it has avoided for centuries.
Yes.
So this is going to, we're almost delving into the unknown because
Yes.
all of what they're doing is setting precedences, you know. So, um, but there are certain truths that are constants in the equation, and I do think, for example, America is a land and a society that is full of denial. They have denied the reality of their social ills. They have denied their past. They've created certain illusions within the society that are of falsehood, and some of those realities are going to come to head. We still are a segregated society in many ways, but yet they create the illusion again that all is well. And in instance, we are a sick society that needs to address a lot of the ills. Otherwise, we are only going in the direction that it is already, which is down.
Yes.
We're falling as a society. Yes,
Yes, in my last presentation, I talked about the blitz, what I call the blitzkrieg, you
yes,
know, playing on the German word, when Hitler went across Europe and in a very, fast fashion, overwhelming force and just overpower nations. And
right,
I see that what Trump and Musk are doing to be consonant with that kind of philosophy. You have to hit them hard. We don't have a lot of time. We just have to change things. And that is a frightening aspect of this thing, because once you do that, you put a bulldozer in a building. If there are good things in the building and bad things inside there, everything is going to get run over.
yes,
And
yes,
what we're seeing is that these guys don't, they don't have a clue about the implications of what they're doing. But two, they're not driven with any sense of compassion about what they're doing.
right,
And neither
right,
are they empathetic or compassionate about anything. They have ulterior motives, which are not good for the country. And that's why I hear you that they're altering the character of the society in such fundamental ways that is within a short time
right.
with the blitzkrieg that they're doing. They can reduce 50 years of things that have sustained. Look at the US aid. Look at the US
Oh,
aid, how long that program has been around. And in one
oh,
fell swoop, boom.
yes. And they don't realize that the USAID program is in every embassy throughout the world, the
Yes.
USM, and the significance of that organization and what it has done internationally on behalf of the American people is being overshadowed and not even appreciated in any way. As you're pointing out, Ralston, the blitzkrieg speed that they're doing with everything, haste makes waste, and they're creating a
Mm-hmm.
tremendous amount of waste, especially
Right.
within our government. Um, there are methods and systems in place historically that if you wanted to reduce the force of the government, there are systems that one can implement to slowly, in an implementing way, reduce the force, reduce the population.
Of course.
But if you're doing it just completely blindly like this, you're taking all of the quality and all of the skills and
Mm-hmm.
dashing it to the side
Mm-hmm.
without in any way looking at a systemic way of slowly but surely
Yes.
reducing force. They're not doing it. The blitzkrieg is what you're pointing out is just wiping out this country's, in some ways, best and brightest in certain fields and
Mm-hmm.
don't recognize it. The consequences will be short to come
Oh, yes.
when we realize what we
Oh,
have.
yes.
Yes,
Because, the
yes,
American bureaucracy, is a humongous bureaucracy, just when you go in there with a sledgehammer like they're doing, you're gonna
yes.
smash things to a
Oh
point
my
that
God.
it's
Oh my.
going to be irreparable. You know,
Oh,
the
yes.
the 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 the, the outcomes of what you're intending. And so
Right.
when you smash institutions, especially institutions that have stood up for so many years against the vagaries of dictators and all these men and all these powers, and have sustained the strength of the country and have given America respectability around the world.
Yes.
Because that is one of the big things. America is withering you know, from a place of respectability where people really could depend on you. America, that's why people come to America, because they
Right.
saw the country as the only place that could offer them a hope. And that hope is being destroyed by these men who don't have a clue other than
Don't have
their
a clue.
own need for self-aggrandizement and wealth, and to fuel the pockets of their supporters, of their wealthy supporters, at the expense of the country.
At the
And we
expense.
can't see that.
The unfortunate reality is that there's so much denialism and ignorance in a lot of our
Mhm.
society that at this stage of the game they're not aware of the devastation that's taking place.
Mhm.
And it will only be when systems are no longer in action and what services that they had previously provided will cease, then they will start to see all what is being lost. But then in some instances, it'll be too late because to
Oh,
rebuild all of what they destroyed is going to take a long time.
and that's why, sometimes I hear people say, oh, that's what they voted for. No, that's not what people voted for, because I never even knew that this is what could happen. I would
Right.
vote, that, I wouldn't say most, because that's a scientific terminology to say most, as if I know. I don't. But I can say many who voted never had a clue of the implications of some of the things that Trump was saying. Not even Trump himself understood it. Because what he's doing
Yes.
is he's
Yes.
trafficking on the back of Musk to do these things. And that's why he has given him a free hand. And this guy is a true believer in the things that he wants to have happen, and the kind of status in the country
Right.
and in the world he wants to have, at the same time fueling his bottom line. But
Yes.
Trump doesn't have
That's
a
right.
clue of the implications of many of the things that Musk is doing.
No. The unfortunate truth is Trump is fascinated by individuals that he considers brilliant. He's fascinated
Mhm.
by individuals that are powerful and
Oh,
wealthy.
yeah.
He is awestruck. He's awestruck by those, and they will have a lot of influence automatically where he's concerned.
Oh,
I
yes.
doubt it if he recognizes or knows the history or the background of Elon Musk, for example. I'm sure he hasn't done any kind of historical referencing. His parents are originally from Germany. His mother is a very far right advocate. They come out of South Africa. They're citizens to Canada, South Africa, and here. And their belief concepts are all have been jaded from the beginning. You got to remember South Africa and many of the whites there um, purported apartheid for so long, and that mentality of where they're coming from is now they're having free range to practice a lot of their ideology. So I would consider Elon Musk at this stage of the game a dangerous person
Very dangerous.
and
And
unleashed. Yes,
untethered. Um, I don't think that
yes,
if Trump knew of
untethered.
his background, that it would have mattered much to
No,
him. As a matter of fact,
no,
it would have given him greater fillip to put him there, because it would be more in tandem with what he wants to do and the kind of people that
right.
he wants to surround himself with. But I don't think he really did that background thing that you're talking about there,
No,
Skip.
I doubt it. He never generally does.
Oh,
Not
no,
even for
no.
his vice president did he.
No. And as for the vice
Yes,
president, I mean, he has to be for another time. But I'm telling you, the amount of carnage in 2 months that has happened in the country, and the number of people who are suffering as a result of that. Bear in mind, MAGA people too, because
yes,
we have not even begun to see, the operations of RFK. at
Oh,
HHS,
yeah.
at the health
Yes.
ministry,
Mm,
right?
yes.
And when they start to, when they got Medicare, as they, well, Medicaid especially, and they're talking as if they don't want to touch Medicare, but nothing is spared from the hands of these predators. And people must understand that. Social Security,
Yes.
Medicare, anything that has to be done to find the money to justify the tax heist, the biggest tax
Right.
heist, $4 trillion, where are you going to get that money from? And to back
Yes.
that up, unless you're going to be gutting some of these programs, safety net programs that people have depended on over these many years. And when they start to gut these things,
Yes.
and the hospitals are closing in the deep rural areas, and the MAGA people go there and they can't get any help, right? Or they're losing their jobs. Men who voted for Trump are losing their jobs right now. What's going to happen? They're going to turn on them.
Yes. Absolutely. I think we are, as a nation, rolling into the unknown by allowing what
Yeah.
they, well, you see, the Project 2025 is now being actualized. It's not being
Yes.
spoken of, but all of what is in 2025, they're actually doing now.
Yeah, that is
They're not
true.
making the connection with it, but in reality, that's exactly it.
But
And
most
so, to
people,
some degree,
go ahead, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, most people, as you're pointing out, are really not even making that connection.
Yeah.
It's foreign to them. If you ask most people what's Project 2025, they have no idea. They have none.
And that
And
is
there lies the other, yeah,
and that is why I'm saying that
and there
in
lies,
the elections they didn't quite understand, you know, that
yeah,
this is what Trump would have wanted to do. And
right,
Trump himself doesn't even know what is coming next. RFK up there can do anything and he doesn't know. Tulsi Gabbard can be doing things and he doesn't know. Hegseth can be doing things and he doesn't have a clue. Because let's face it, I mean, at 79, you don't have the presence of mind and perhaps even the presence of body to have a kind of overarching command of the people under you. You know what they could be doing that he doesn't even know of?
that's
And
right,
Mark, if they do anything that is very displeasing and wrong, I mean, he's not going to be that upset about it.
right. Understand the truth of the organization that Elon Musk is under, where he has a few 21-year-old individuals surveying and auditing these agencies, looking into their systems, and supposedly discovering all kinds of fraud and waste. But when in reality it's presented, it's discovered that it's all incorrect. You're not showing any true waste of any magnitude. And so they're trying to ultimately justify the means to the end of their actions based upon the ignorance of them understanding or even knowing how these agencies and entities operate. So it's amazing that we have unfortunately allowed all of this to somehow take place where the complete authority is in this man and his cohort Musk. And these two men are literally doing whatever they wish to do where the United States government is concerned. And there's
Yes,
no
yes.
one
That,
there to
that that is
stop
what
them.
I find. That is what I find absolutely appalling. The extent to which they
Yes,
have neutered the Congress. They have
yes,
neutered the Congress, emasculated them.
yes,
I mean, you're a legislative body and you
yeah,
see all these things taking place, and you mean to tell me that because you're afraid that you can't do anything about it. So what are we doing with you wimps and weaklings inside there? Ted Cruz, Harley, Lindsey Graham, all of you. Eh?
yes,
What are we
yes,
doing with you inside there? If you see the countries in peril and they know better, they know, but they're weaklings. because they want to be on the side of Trump, either that they're afraid of him, or two, they really see an opportunity for self-aggrandizement out of what is happening. So they don't care about
Absolutely.
what happens to the country, and they don't deserve to be in the Congress. All of those guys who support this kind of nonsense, don't tell me that you don't see it. Guys, it's
Right.
as clear as day what they're doing. You see, the problem is with these young men that are marauding through these agencies. It's not so much the number of frauds that they're going to discover, but perhaps, and I don't say it no softer than that, perhaps the number of fraud that they themselves are committing.
Yes, absolutely. But,
And
you
who's
know,
watching them? Who's watching them?
no one. They
Who's looking
walk
over
with
their shoulders?
they
They're
walk with
like gods unto
impunity.
themselves. Young,
Right.
you know, men, I don't know to what extent women are even men.
21.
They just access to your most vital information, man. There's no privacy.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
We're moving on, Carl. I want us to look at the Democratic response. What do you think of the Democrats in all of this?
Well, so far from where I sit, I'm not seeing much. I'm not seeing much action or much rage or much. I
Mm-hmm.
I am seeing from the minority speaker. So far, it's been weak, and
Mm-hmm.
obviously, they understand the fact that they are in a position of weakness, numerically, and at this time, politically at all. They are just watching like you and I from the stand by the side, observing what is taking place with very little outrage being spoken. I mean, Bernie, Bernie Sanders might, you'll hear a bit from him, but
And
the
he's an old man
congressman
now
out
in
of
the
Texas,
exit lounge himself.
absolutely. But the congressman from Texas who
Crockett.
raised his
Crockett.
voice at
Oh, you mean Al
right.
Green.
Well,
Yeah.
the Jasmine Crockett is one that I admire.
Oh,
She at
yeah.
least speaks her thoughts and views. And there's that
I,
other congressman from. It's a gentleman. His name escapes me, but he recently has spoken out when he
from
points out that
Connecticut,
we're
the one from
no from
Connecticut,
Texas as well.
Chris Murphy from Connecticut.
Chris Murphy's one.
Yeah.
Yes, there are a few that really are
Yeah.
standing up and speaking individually. How close we are to approaching uh, a dictatorship at this time. We
Oh,
are
yes.
close.
Very close.
Have no, yes.
When I,
And it won't take more to push us over the precipice.
the whole dictatorship thing was confirmed in my mind even more so. The treatment he gave to Zelensky in the Oval Office
Oh,
was so despicable. And the way that
so
he talked to him and so on, and the way he's playing up to Putin, he has always had that. It should not be any secret to people to know that he has always had this uh, love for Putin
admiration.
and what he represents, and admiration for that kind of autocratic.
Yes,
He wants to be the chairman of the World Autocratic Club. That's what
yes,
he's probably aspiring towards. But back to the Democrats. Uh, they have a certain strength in the House because it's just a matter of probably two votes that
right.
and they can probably try to influence that in some way. I find that their response has been very tepid because
Yes,
I think they're still trying to recover from the shock of the elections, and they don't really know where to put their feet just yet. And then this man has taken them with the blitzkrieg that we talked about earlier, that it has caught everybody flat-footed, you know. But
yes,
still, they have to remember that they have power. There are 535 of them, 435 in the House and 100 in the Senate. And they
Right.
need to realize, I don't know to what extent they're seeing these things and talking these things, that the grave danger that the country is in, and that they have, especially the Republicans, have ceded their authority to this would-be autocrat. And that's
Yes.
why, and he has nothing but contempt for them, and they don't realize that. He's very contemptuous of them, and that's why he's doing everything by executive orders. Because when he does things by executive orders, he can do it almost as if he was an autocrat by decree.
Right.
By decree, it's a kind of czarist posture that he
Yes.
has assumed, where he just, and that's why I prophesied a good 3 months or so before he got into office, that if he did get into office, he would preside over the signing of more executive orders than any president in the history of the country in the first 100 days. I prophesied that. And he's gone over 100
Well, it's
already.
happening. Yes.
And
Yes.
it doesn't take genius to know that. It doesn't take any genius to know that. You
But you
see,
see,
it's essential to who he is as a person. And he has to rule by decree, and the executive
yes.
orders give him those,
Right.
that and the pardon power. And that's why I know he would abuse those. Because the things that he can do that bypasses the Congress, he's
Right.
gonna do. I just
Yes.
have no respect for
Every and
them.
any, that's
And they
right.
better know
Every and
that.
anything. And he's doing that. The only
Oh,
thing
yeah.
at this stage of the game
And he's
that the
just getting started.
Democrats, yes, and he's just getting started.
Mhm.
The Democrats have to face the reality that they are
Mhm.
confronted with. They have to change their ball game because the old ball
Mhm.
game is not going to work with this guy. So therefore, they have to do things that they have never done before.
Mhm.
And they have to be willing to have the courage and the leadership. And I hope Hakeem Jeffries it will be able to illustrate that kind of leadership of we've got to change our modus operandi in regards to how we deal with these people because um, it's not the same ball game as it was
Yes.
a few years ago. And I think
And
that's where the Democrats, to some degree, are shifting the mindset of the new reality, so to speak.
and they need to understand that time is not on their side, because Trump is moving very fast and they have
Time
to
is
try
not.
to catch up with him and keep with him. Time is not on their side.
That's right.
So they better get down,
No,
and
no.
there's sufficient of them in the House, I think, and certainly in the Senate. The Senate is just 4 or so seats that, separate them. Don't tell me you don't have
Right.
power. Don't tell me you can't do more than you're doing. Run protests out there in the streets. When
That's
when
right.
these guys were going down there to shut down the USA building, for example, I thought that they would just form a chain right around the building themselves, that don't come in here. No, they
Yes.
were missing in
Something.
action. Missing in
Yes, they
action.
were.
You got to get out there and let Trump bring on the martial law, which is what he really wants to provoke
Oh,
people
without
to
a
do. Well, we won't get into that part
doubt.
of it. But
That, right.
they better be clear in their mind that they cannot sit on their laurels. They
No.
gotta do as Harris said, Kamala Harris when she ran. Do something.
Right.
Do something. Or
Or are they banking?
let me just say this quickly, Carl. When Trump was running during the campaign, his big slogan is, "Will we gotta fight like hell to take our country back." And I was
Yeah.
just musing with, I think I mentioned it to my wife the other day, and I said to her that, what a way that slogan is relevant to the Democrats now to use.
Yes. Yes.
We got
That's
to
true.
fight like hell to take our country back, because it's really
Right.
like
Or,
I found it
or,
interesting.
oh, absolutely. Or are they focusing on the strategy of we are two down, an election coming up where we theoretically could win the House back, and
Yeah,
from there we have
they better not
more of a fighting chance.
they better not bank on that. They gotta find their way to get that because Trump won when we thought he couldn't win. And they better be
That's
out
right.
there and let people see them and feel their presence. If they think they're just going to sit and
Right.
wait and pick ripe mangoes off my tree, come the next year and change. Ain't gonna happen. It isn't gonna happen. They better get
Right.
out there and
No.
fight like hell to take the country back.
Right. They have to make news. And if
Yeah,
they have to physically be out there,
they're
as you're
too
pointing
tepid.
out, and get the media out behind them, they
Yeah,
have to do that.
yeah, they're
That
too tepid,
requires
man.
leadership.
They're too
Yes,
lukewarm,
leadership is
warmed over
necessary.
food. Yeah. Anyway, Carl,
Yes,
listen, man, we could
yes.
go on for the whole night with this thing, but we'll come back again on it, and hopefully Brian can join us next time.
Okay,
And it's great seeing you,
sure,
man. And
absolutely.
we'll talk. I'll give you a
Absolutely.
shout, and we'll distill a few things.
All right. And before I go, I've got
Yes.
1.5 blossoms on the tree.
Whoa.
Did you hear?
and and we
One
just want to say to
and
the
a half
audience, we
blossom.
just we just want to say to the audience that that tree that Carl is referring to is a child of that one behind me. A child of that one behind me. So you see it is propagating and the
Yeah.
thing is expanding. Congrats, man. Congrats. You've done a good job keeping it going.
Thank you, sir.
I,
Yes.
I hope to at least eat one. I don't need more than just one.
Oh, I hope so.
All right. Bless you, my
Okay.
brother. Thanks for
Thank
joining me.
you.
All
Have a
right.
good night.
All
Bye-bye.
right. Thank you. And so, friends, thanks very much, Sam, for joining us this evening. We hope that you have enjoyed the discussion, the passion that we have brought to this very important subject of what is happening in America. And people may ask, oh, America, oh, Trump. But let me tell you something, friends. As it has been said, America has a sneeze and the entire world gets a cold. You don't want this kind of cold that's going to come from America this time around. So that's why we all have to be concerned and do our best to keep things before us and under even keel. So we'll continue these discussions as things evolve. There are those of us who have to talk about these things, if even to help the others who, understandably, are fearful about making their voices known. All right, so let me thank you for joining me this evening. And remember, when you go to the site, you might watch this as an episode, because I can understand people aren't just going to be able to sit live on these programs. But it's gonna be uploaded to the channel, and you can always go there and watch it, and you can still like it, you can still make your comments, and certainly you can share it with somebody else so that we can get the word out and keep the thing going. So thank you for doing all of that. And until next time, let me wish you all the best. And whatever you do, Wahwood, have a good night.